for joining us. My name is Edward Mbeche, founder and CEO of Helen Technology, the super app. First, I want to apologize for our previous episode. We had the voice actually was kind of chopping off on and off for some reason. I'm still kind of making sure I'm getting the right mics and all the technical stuff to just get everything on like perfect in order. But today I have a guest. His name is Pear, aka the Price Whisper. Hopefully, I said the name correctly. How are you?
Yeah, that's and thank you very much on the show, Edward. I'm looking and obviously I find it and maybe even entertaining.
That's good. That's good. How do you say your last name? Like I know I didn't want to.
Sjofors.
Is it? Sorry, can you say again?
Well, the really is with the great difficulty. So it would be Sjofors, sort of an anglicized version of it.
For some reason, I don't know if it's me, but actually, I just find out you're kind of cutting in and out again. I'm not sure if it's the mic. Is it your mic maybe connection? I just want to make sure it's connected good.
Well, this is the third day, and been any problem?
Yeah. Is it possible, if you're using a computer, is it possible to remove the mic and just use the computer mic? Yeah, like because I'm having like I can't hear nothing. I see you like moving your lips, but I can't hear nothing. Yeah, just give us a minute, guys. Sorry, we just gotta make sure we have everything good. And if you can go ahead again, prepare, kind of see if the mic. Yep, that mic is not good. Sorry about that. Yeah, the mic is not good.
Is this a better microphone?
Yes, I hear you now. Yeah, let's continue talking. See, yes, perfect.
All right. Okay, so we'll use this mic then.
Oh, perfect. So we were talking about a little bit about this is Pear, aka the Price Whisper, and I wanted to kind of just maybe kind of give a little bit of history of like let's go back. Like, who are you? Maybe like where you grew up and all kind of stuff. Just kind of give that image, kind of people know who you are.
Yeah, sure. And this goes back to the weird name. I grew up in born and raised in Sweden. Okay. I eventually got my first CEO job in a company that I established in Switzerland, in Zurich, and I then moved to London, where I ran the European subsidiary of a Japanese electronics maker. And then I moved here to the States, where I established and ran and built a division to a fairly large company. Mm-hmm. And after that, I've had another 4 CEO jobs in companies of different sizes. And what in all of those instances, we did experiments with pricing.
Yeah.
Only because I thought pricing is sort of so interesting, and some of those experiments were hugely successful. Like next quarter revenues are up 25%. Yes. Others were complete duds. And what I had learned in business school and could read about pricing was so academic and theoretical that it didn't help us in any way to understand why some of those experiments worked and others didn't. So
you got into sorry to call you, but you got into pricing when you're managing this company or building this company as a CEO. And
what really happened was that I became aware that the way that pricing is being taught to entrepreneurs and business leaders simply is wrong. It's based out of theories that has nothing to do with reality. So when I 15 years ago, I decided I was too old and too opinionated to be a hired gun, meaning a CEO
Yeah.
for somebody else. It was time to set out on my own and do my own thing. And then I took that experience that I had, and what I did was that I said there must be a better way of setting prices, and because of that, I developed a process that would make every pricing experiment a success.
Perfect. I know we're gonna go through like a lot of this like value, kind of adding value, and then we can talk more about
Sure.
the pricing and then like how uh is like how for business or like this corporation to like setting up prices, like the right pricing. But let's go back a little bit about I'm very fascinated by Switzerland. Swiss, like
Okay.
to Swiss watch. Do people care in Switzerland about Swiss watch? Like the
Oh,
American here, like I got a
here's
Swiss
one,
watch.
you know.
Yeah, here we go. So it's like, yeah, they okay. That's good. What was it like growing up in Switzerland? Is it do
No,
you
I
get to
grew
go
up in
back
no, I grew up in Sweden. I
in
moved to
Sweden?
Switzerland.
Sweden,
Yeah,
yeah, Sweden, yeah,
but
Sweden.
I mean, two very different countries, you know.
Yeah, I'm confusing this Sweden and
Yeah, I know. Lots of people do.
yeah, yeah. That's
Um,
you see, yeah. So
but uh,
mhm.
Sweden doesn't have any watches. Switzerland
It's a
and
Swiss.
chocolate.
You see,
Switzerland had chocolate and cheese and watches. So
okay, okay, Sweden. Yeah, so that's where I was confusing Sweden and Switzerland. Perfect.
yeah.
So yes, and I believe that you still have family. You still go back, kind of back and forth, or like
Yeah, I have a brother and his family, and my mom is still alive. I think she's 91 or so,
well,
and I'm actually going there in a couple of months to visit her for a few days. So,
mhm.
you know, she's old and she's suffering. She's almost blind and can hardly walk, and
You gotta
so
go
not
back.
a good life.
Yeah.
The thing they do in Sweden, which is kind of interesting, is that they instead of when you get really old, instead of putting people in sort of old people's home, the society let people stay in their own houses, and they support them with
In their family
nursing
homes.
help
Yeah.
and all the help they need, but they don't have to move, you know. So that's a good thing.
Yeah. I guess like in America, very few family that they follow that family value where they're like, you know what, we're not gonna put you in the older home kind of. So I guess it depends with family and family, but I guess maybe a huge majority or a high percentage of American they are more like, hey, I work. Even probably even the parents themselves or they like I work hard by the time I get older, either they don't trust their kid. They're like, by the time I get older, I have saved enough money for me to go in a in the nursing home or like older
Yeah.
people. And yeah, so which is it's kind of sad. It'd be better to just have you know all their family just kind of live with family, right? Because that love is just there, kind of take care of them.
Yeah, there are obviously pros and cons with each way of doing it. You know, many um, some cultures you'll have the family taking care of parents when they get old, and in other cultures is less so. You know, on I mean on one end, many times when you have a situation where the family takes care of the elderly members in the family, eventually it ends up being one of the women that take care of the older people, and that means that they can't go to work, and they just have to stay home, which
Yeah.
may not be a good thing, you know.
Yeah.
And it's different, you know. Like I said, I grew up in Sweden. I lived in Switzerland. I lived permanently in the UK, and now I'm living permanently here in the US. And one thing that I learned from that journey,
Yeah.
that is that there's no best country. They're just different, you know.
They each offer something different. Yeah.
Each offers something different, and you can't really say that one is better than the other. They're just different.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that was another question I was about to say if you miss Sweden or Switzerland. But so let's jump into this. I know the price whispers. So I know with this managing or like being the CEO of companies either from Europe to US, so you kind of mastered this this pricing for companies. Like when like let's say like what are the top three like mistake company do about pricing and stuff? Kind of maybe there's to just
Yeah, I think that's maybe the first, if we really want to think about it, the very first mistake is not thinking about price enough.
yeah
Um, there's a there's and I've been through this in my career more than once. You know, when we have a new product launch, you know, and or maybe there's a trade show and the salespeople need a price so they can go out and sell it, right?
Mhm.
So somebody books this pricing meeting, and in that meeting you have representative for sales, for finance, for marketing, for product management, and they all have different opinions about what the price should be.
yeah
Finance typically wants a high price because they look at the margin. Sales want a low price because they believe that's going to make life easier for them. Marketing often say we want value price, and then they don't really know what that means. And product management, they say, well, I calculated that the price should be this, and all of them are wrong, you know. And they all have lots of opinions, but nobody really knows. So it normally ends that whoever has the highest seniority in a group like that sort of slams his or her fists down the conference table and said, "This is going to be the price,"
yeah
and it's just completely arbitrary. There's nothing scientific in this process, and it ends up being that companies are leaving money on the table as a result.
yeah
Other key mistakes is to base price on cost, called cost plus, and different industries they carefully calculate the cost of a product or a service, and then they slap on a margin that is the rule of thumb in their industry.
yeah yeah
Some old school manufacturing companies, they add like 35%, maybe
yeah
50%. Some companies or some industries, they take their cost times 2. Some take their cost times 5. Some take their cost times 10.
yeah
And and all of them are guarantees to leave money on the table. As the second big mistake is to look at a competitor and try to figure out what the competitor charges. And yeah, if your competitor have prices on their website, that may be that you at least get a hint of where they're pricing, but you still don't know what kind of deals the competitor do. It may be that the competitor has the website geo targeted, so it depends on where you are, you see different prices, or set up the website so that if you're a returning visitor, you see different prices than if you're there the first time, or that that they change prices. I mean, change prices, you know, 8 times a day to see what sells the most. You know,
so
and if you don't have if you don't have a competitor that have prices visible like that, how are you
Yeah.
going to get the prices?
So I gave example. So like in my neighborhood, not like maybe not really my neighborhood, is like in this area we're trying to go get some food. They opened this restaurant, Caribbean food, and in that neighborhood is not like a high end.
Mm-hmm.
So and then there's like a Chinese restaurant that sell like a food for like you can get food for like $9, $10. This
Mm-hmm.
Caribbean food comes in selling for $17.
Mm-hmm.
And so like that's even like the pricing there. So there's a way maybe for them, I feel like they end up pricing themselves out of business because they were there for like I want to say maybe no more than 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody like you will get like really few people will go there. Is that kind of type of idea like you price yourself sometime where you end up just kind of going out of business?
Yeah, I mean, both of these strategies may end up you going out of business.
Mhm.
If you underprice yourself, so you're not making enough margin, then obviously you eventually will be you won't make profits, and you will eventually go out of business.
Yeah,
And also, if you price yourself too high, you would go out of business because you won't have enough. But
not enough customer.
it's,
Yeah,
having
yeah,
said that,
yeah.
let's we talk about Swiss watches for a little second here. And um, just when I started this pricing consultancy practice that I'm running, um, they a watch company whose name I forgot right now. Not It's not one of the big ones, but they managed to make a series of watches from using steel that had been recovered from the Titanic, and they
Mm.
priced those watches at 375,000 each,
Wow,
and they sold out the entire series in 10 days.
wow. So they it's like they figured a way to just add. I mean, the value for them. They maybe also knowing their customer, who to
Well,
target, or like a like
maybe it should have been 495 instead, or half a million.
yeah, yeah.
Um, so
So
if they sold out the series in only 10 days, or maybe it was 2 weeks,
yeah,
it was underpriced. All right.
so
But to your Caribbean restaurant, it could well be that they have a very restaurants have these rule of thumb, which again is completely wrong.
yeah,
That food cost should be a third, staff cost should be a third, and markup should be a third, right?
mhm,
And and that will give you the price. And in the Caribbean case, maybe they had expensive ingredients. Maybe they had expensive staff, so they needed to have an expensive price to make a profit.
mhm,
And in Chinese, maybe they used really cheap ingredients. Maybe they. I mean, rice and sauce doesn't cost a lot.
yeah, yeah,
And 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 if you're in an area where people are price sensitive, obviously that's going to be the choice of the population. So,
so
and
like mhm,
Chinese food is so well known. Caribbean food is not so well known.
yeah. So what with this I'm trying to think. So there's pricing for products and then there's pricing for services.
Mm-hmm.
So with that pricing example, like I was giving for this Caribbean food, so you go to service. Like right now you have companies like rideshare where you have Uber and Lyft where they're competing for customers.
Yeah.
So for them, they keep like there's no sweet spot for the price because each one keep trying to undercut each other. So they say, "Hey, I have a cheaper price. I have a cheaper price." But at the end, on the back end, the company not maybe not really making profit, but also at the same time, the driver who's getting hurt because of
Mhm.
that price model. So, like, if you get into something like that, how do you solve a problem like that where you have competitor doing the same thing, but they keep trying to beat each other on the pricing?
Well, let me tell you a story here.
Mhm.
On the annual shareholder meeting of American Airlines, the then CEO, this was in 1986, I think. He introduced that they started to do something called dynamic pricing,
Mhm.
or in the airline industry is called yield management. And this means that prices are changing based on demand, right? He said that this is the most important thing that's happened to our industry since the jet engine, right? And he was absolutely right.
Yeah.
It brought every single airline except one into bankruptcy, right? And that including American Airlines.
Mhm.
And the one company that's never filed for bankruptcy is Southwest Airlines.
Southwest, yeah.
And if and the what happened here was that it took it didn't take consumers very long to realize that if I'm sitting here um, in this uncomfortable chair with lousy service,
Yep.
and I talk to my neighbor and I find out that he or she paid half what I paid because he or she bought the ticket 2 weeks earlier. It didn't take very long to teach consumers that they should plan a little better and therefore get much lower prices and 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 so forth. And the what happened here, of course, was that this yield management was unregulated, you know. So there was no too low prices, you know. I remember just after 9/11, I booked a return trip to Europe for $140 in business class, right?
Wow.
Nobody made a lot of money on that
Yeah.
that trip.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
and 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 the so the problem when you have a commodity like the airlines is that there's no differentiation,
Mhm.
because pricing power is something that comes from a company differentiate themselves in some meaningful way for their customers so that they can charge a little higher prices and therefore um, make a profit, right?
Yeah.
And this dynamic pricing is often seen as the um, as the silver bullet for right pricing, but it's not. Um, it works to some extent, but it has to be surrounded by strict business rules. And Uber and Lyft,
Yeah.
they use dynamic pricing. So if there's not a lot of demand, there is the prices are low. If there's a lot of demand, prices are high, and they call it surge pricing.
Yeah.
Um, but it's what neither of them do is to differentiate themselves in one way. They're just pure commodity, and when you're pure commodity, lowest price win.
Yeah. Yeah. So I know right now, so you help business. Do you only target like startup, or do you? It doesn't matter. Like, it can be a company making millions and millions, or do you just target startup kind of thing?
No,
Like,
we do some work in startups. We do some work in for Fortune 500 companies.
okay.
Most of our clients are sort of mid-market or small to mid-market companies with revenues between, say, 5 million to 250 million. Most of them are in the sort of 25 to maybe 75 million range.
So what's the process when you come in? Like, do you like? I know. You say it's not only like market research where the price is still get kind of lost in transition in translation where you have market research or product management. Like, what's the process when you come in? Um,
Yeah,
to
the yeah the process is willingness to pay research, and that is done online, and with willingness to pay research, it's possible to accurately um, understand what a market is willing to pay for a product or a service, and that then yields a prediction of sales volume and a prediction of revenue at different prices. And it's very important to realize that the price that generates the highest sales volume and the price that generates the highest revenue are not the same price. And if you remember what they teach you in business school, where they say price elasticity is a straight line, that's completely false.
Mm,
That's not how we
mm,
work as humans. There's psychological price points where we can see significant change in sales volume if we cross them. So a true a true one of these demand curves is jagged. It has a crest, and if you price yourself lower than the crest, sales volume will go down, and that's because something called expectation bias will tell the buyer that this price is so low that it can't be any good, and therefore they won't buy.
mhm,
Um, but that's really just the very beginning, because then it's all about segmenting those predictions of sales volume and revenue. So segment them by different customer profiles. So you would know what customer segment, what customer profile will support higher prices than other segments. What features and functions of a product or service will lead to the highest revenue. So you want to use them in your marketing and sales. Um, what sales and marketing channels and messages are more effective to drive higher sales volume at higher prices than others, and of course, how can you set up a pricing strategy in such a way that it minimizes sales friction and again maximize revenue. So it really becomes a go-to-market strategy, but it's focused on price.
yeah. Great. What can you let's say I have a friend who's debating kind of opening a Shopify store, like online store.
Mm-hmm.
And some other maybe they might already have like some store or like either one of my friend has a store that they sell clothing like a boutique, and with
Mm-hmm.
this, what some pricing tip that you can apply today? Do you have any kind of suggestion that can just kind of yeah.
Well, it needs to be. Um, I mean, I said you shouldn't use your cost as a basis for pricing, but obviously you should just use your cost as a way of making sure that uh, that you're not selling below your cost, right? Because,
Yeah.
but um, the when you have a shop and you have lots of SKUs, it's really about deciding first off, where are you positioned in the shop and with the products that you have.
Yeah.
Are you positioned as a premium shop, and then the whole experience needs to be premium? Are you positioned as a low cost, and again the you need to understand how you position yourself and which your audience is.
Yeah.
And if your audience is a is a an audience that um, wants a great experience, wants a premium experience with premium products, then of course your product needs to be expensive.
Yeah.
I mean, we all know, obviously, how Starbucks took what was at the time a 50-cent piece of yuck in a styrofoam cup,
Yeah.
and made it into a $4 experience, right?
Yeah.
And but Starbucks is interesting because you have to consider a little bit at least what business they're in.
Yes.
Do you know that Starbucks is the single largest buyer of milk in America?
Oh, I did not know that. Yeah.
So their business is coffee flavored milk. You know,
Yeah. I didn't, I did not know that. Yeah.
and it's also kind of funny because
Yeah.
the Starbucks story talks about how they took inspiration from Italian cafes, but Italian cafes are absolutely nothing like a Starbucks,
They're
Um,
not buying so many milk. It's just nice, strong coffee, like kind of shot
well,
type.
yeah, and not only that, you don't sit down. You walk in, you get your espresso,
Mm.
and you sip it up in a couple of sips, and then you walk out.
Yeah.
And and um, and a cappuccino is something you only drink for breakfast, never any other time during the day.
Yeah, like over here. So with Starbucks, you can get it any time of the day. You're right. Like, yeah, in the afternoon. Yep.
But again, they created an experience that was very, very different than the coffee experience used to be, and because of that, they were able to charge much higher prices. But not only that, substantially increase the coffee consumption and the milk consumption.
Yeah.
So they understood that by creating a very different experience, they could drive a business that's been obviously hugely successful. And in your friend, whether it's a hypothetical friend or not, it's about understanding where do you want to position yourself, and going back to that Caribbean restaurant, if if they for reasons need to have higher prices and set up shop in an area where that are price sensitive, they're
Yeah.
in the wrong place, right?
Right. So also, so it depends also with the location also, I guess. Maybe just not
Yeah, of
just,
course, yeah,
oh, yeah. So
absolutely.
in my head, I was thinking, so like let's say me, if I was to just start like let's say I'm gonna start a clothing store.
Hmm.
So is a wrong way of thinking? Let's say I'm buying this kind of polo shirt from
Hmm.
either a wholesaler or the manufacturer. Let's say we like right now people have a way of getting product directly from manufacturer in China. So I buy this from manufacturer. Maybe I'm buying it for $20, right? So I
Hmm.
ship it. So I know the cost of the shipping. I know how much it's going to cost me on taxes, and I know how
Hmm.
much I'm paying for the space that I'm setting up the shop. So would
Hmm.
that say for me, would it be a bad or wrong thinking? Like, okay, I bought this for $20. So I say, okay, taxes plus this. So I can be like, you know what, I'm gonna sell this for $50.
Hmm.
Would that just a bad thinking of like just putting a number, just be like, yeah, no, without
No,
really
I
the research behind it
you know the
to
kind of research that we do
mm,
doesn't really lends itself to individual clothing items,
yeah,
um, and you can do it for an individual product if it's a product that is sold in mass numbers,
uh,
I mean, you can do it for something like this, but because it's a single product and it's sold to a lot of people, not when you have and also a relatively low cost product like a like the clothing shirt that you just mentioned, So the when you're in that situation, you really need to you use a combination of guesses and gut feel and so forth, and then you need to test.
Yeah.
You need to change your prices and see what happens.
So
No,
I guess
the,
that's. Sorry about that.
the,
Go ahead.
no, and no, that's a double-edged sword, right? Because as you test different prices, first off, if you have returning customers and they see prices that are changing all the time, they get confused, and you lost that customer. You when it comes to um, um, if you test sort of, you want to start with a price that you feel is the right one, okay, and then increase it until you see that the sales are going to start to drop, but it also requires that people are buying this with some considerable frequency. If you have the single shop and you have this one shirt, among 100 different other shirts, are you selling 10 of these a day so that this testing doesn't take so long that at the end of the testing, it's a product that is not longer relevant,
So it's part of like data. Like that's what you say. Like data is like how much sales or data do you need to know the price is right or not? Kind of type. Right?
Yeah, again, a single shop like that, you don't have a lot of options,
Yeah.
because again, testing takes time. There's software that does this for you, but if a single polo shirt like that, the first off, you need to start with some price and then keep track of how many do you sell per day or per hour, maybe, if you can. So you need that tracking. Then you need to know uh, things like maybe weather have an impact, right? So you need to see how weather impacts sales, if it does. You need to see how if different days versus other days, if that makes an impact. and eventually you will need at least about 100 data points,
Yeah.
before you can start making any kind of useful decisions, and then you try it and you get another data point, another 100 data points, and now you sold 200 of this polo shirt.
Yeah.
And you only have 2 data points, right? So um, and then you may think that the and I'm saying 100 data points because you need to see what difference the time of day makes. You need to see what difference the weather makes. You need to see whether it's whether it's a weekday or a weekend, or if there is some big sports thing going on one day, if that impacts. I mean, it becomes a very intensive kind of um, process. Now, large retailers do this. They or they at least they have the ability to do it. I don't know if all of them do, but some certainly do, because they they are shifting 10 of that polo shirt an hour, and they have very sophisticated software that tracks things like time of day and weather and other events and all different things, and they can track people who buy this garment also bought that garment and so forth. So there's a whole science behind that.
Yeah, but I was about to say, like, probably for larger retail, they have that luxury of being able to kind of collect this data. But at the same time, I was thinking for small business, while they're doing that data gathering, is they also part of that? Maybe they might be going through in the losing business because maybe because you got to play with the data, right? You have to see which work, which doesn't. Is that the part of that? You might be like you're also losing customers at the same time you're trying to collect
Yeah,
this data.
and you're bringing something up, and that is, as you do testing, you will lose customers
Mhm.
because they get confused. You will lose customers because you're too overpriced. You
Yeah.
will lose customers because you're too underpriced, and and um, and and it takes a very long time. So um, now, if you think about something that is not sold in retail in that particular way,
Yeah.
but I mean, like I said, just using this as an example,
Yeah.
um,
The
this
phone.
is something that is sold in very large numbers,
Yes.
or let's say that um, let's say that you, instead of doing a clothing thing that you import from China, let's say that um, you want to um, let's figure something out. Um, let's say that you instead of doing a clothing thing, um, you want to import from China a not a phone, but maybe
Let's do Swiss watch. On import Swiss watch.
Swiss watch, yeah, a
Yeah.
Swiss watch, which is also not sold in big numbers,
Yeah.
uh, but it's then you can and I have to tell you a story on Switch watches that you may appreciate.
Yeah.
Um, I read an interview. This is a couple of years ago. I read an interview with the the CEO of Rolex, right? And he was asked by the journalist to make a statement about the Swiss watch industry.
Yeah.
To which he said, "I don't know. We are not in the watch industry, right?"
Yeah.
No, they're in the lifestyle industry. They're in the jewelry industry, right? They're not in the watch industry,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know. Um,
Wow.
and similar. Think about Red Bull.
Mhm.
Red Bull are in the extreme sports industry, right?
Meanwhile, we're thinking they're in an energy drink.
No,
But
I mean, they monetize
yeah.
their extreme sports business by selling
Yeah.
an energy drink at higher prices than competition, right? So, so what I mean with that is that, and there's nothing wrong here at all, but um, to the point is that when you do this, when you're in this industry, if you like, it's the in the Red Bull thing is that why people buy Red Bull. I have to tell you, I've never even tasted Red Bull.
Yeah.
But people buy Red Bull because they want to feel associated with those extreme sports. They want to be on the team. It makes them feel good and so forth. And that they also get a buzz from all the caffeine. That's an added bonus. But it
Yeah.
all the associations that Red Bull have managed to create um, is driving a higher willingness to pay for the product. And the same with Rolex, because they sponsor these ocean sailboats and stuff like that, and they do all these different things to create an association, and it's that associate. I mean, reading Rolex's history is actually very interesting because they were a true innovator, but the company was actually founded in the UK by a German guy, I think, who eventually moved to Switzerland. And the the um, the but it's all of those associations that makes it a desirable brand, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Let's talk
And
about.
it's
So, go ahead.
yeah.
Sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
No. I was
The
I was about
and,
to ask a different question. Go ahead. Go ahead. I know you're about to finish your point. Sorry.
no, and all of those association. And if we go back to your polo shirt,
Yeah.
it's if your store is very classy, very high end. If you look at stores with that are very high end, they have extraordinary small what do you call it? Very few choices, right? They have if you in this store, in this high end store, you may go and you find um, 5 different polo shirts, right? And they're all $300 each, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you go into an H&M or something like that, they have 50 different kinds of polo shirts, and they're all $9 or $15.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So do you think positioning on a branding company, um, like for you just mentioning about this company like Red Bulls or the Lorex, where they are more of a lifestyle. Do you think that's better finding your product and kind of offering the lifestyle more than the product itself? Kind of be like, hey,
Yeah,
we are just lifestyle but we sell this.
yeah, it's absolutely it's the associations that create it's the prices should always reflect the perceived value that a customer have,
Mhm.
and it's that perceived value that is and how do you manage to create perceived value? Well, it's really marketing, right?
Mhm.
I mean, I have no idea how much money the Red Bulls are spending on these extreme sports stuff that they do, you know. And likewise, I have no idea what Rolex is spending on all their promotions, but obviously they're spending big money, right? And that creates the association that then support higher prices.
Yeah, yeah. Do you believe that every company can improve their pricing? Like in
Um,
or
Not
it is
every company, but
not every company.
about we've actually done some research in that space, and uh, somewhere between 94 and 96% of companies can improve their pricing.
Okay. Okay. So
It's
I
quite a
guess
lot.
yeah. Sorry. Sorry. And I got. I don't know if you hear the noise background there. They just started doing something in my building.
Yeah,
Quick.
I hear that.
Maybe last question before we go.
Sure.
Um, how did you get into this? Like, how did you end up in this? Actually, so, yeah.
Well, I think I started with telling that story that we did pricing experiments in these companies I worked with or worked in, I should say, um, and I, finding that what I learned in business school didn't work. I developed this process, and the process is based on willingness to pay research and then segmenting that research. So you get to understand how all of these associations drive the value of the perceived value that somebody has with a product or a service, you know, and that is the it's very, very hard to talk about the actual value, and there is again a misconception. There's something out there called economic value pricing, which is another one of these academic constructs that has nothing to do with with reality. And in supposedly in economic value pricing, and this is really for business to business. Um, as a seller, you're supposed to understand the exact economic value that the product that you're about to sell will give to the buyer. Well, that requires the buyer to completely open up the kimono, right? And really be honest with everything that this particular new product or service is going to impact, and how it's going to impact the company, you know. And then you're supposed to do a calculation on this, and then you're supposed to price according to that economic value. I mentioned this to several CEOs over the last, I don't know, year or so.
Yeah.
And I said, would you be willing to open up the kimono like that to a vendor so they can see all the skeletons in the closet, so they can calculate the economic value? And they all said, no way. No way.
Yeah.
And not only that, then if you manage to calculate the economic value, how much are you going? What share is you going to be? You're going to take 10%. You're going to take 30%. You're going to take half of it. What? You're just guessing again, right? It's just crazy.
Yeah.
Oh, so it's but there's going to be a perception of value that you can measure, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that is what's going to drive what prices you can set.
The price whisper part. Thank you so
Yes,
much
thank
again for giving all this advices and all this stuff we got to learn today. And also for the people who are not good at geography like me, confusing Switzerland and and Sweden.
It's a very common confusion.
Two different. They are way apart from each other. So thank you so much again. I really appreciate
Thank you very much, Edward. And I hope the audience found this interesting. And
yes,
and obviously, if anybody want to find me, just Google the Price Whisper, and I'm going to come up.
So yes, so the phrase "the price whispers," it should populate on Google search or anything. So, and is that also easy for them to just kind of find you like on social media, like LinkedIn and all?
Yeah, the only social media I really use is LinkedIn. So, but I'm coming up with a book. The Kindle version is published next Tuesday, actually.
Oh,
and
what's the name of the book?
The Price Whisper.
The Price Whisper. So it should be available. It should be available on Amazon. So that's good. It's
available on Amazon on Tuesday, and there's promotional pricing. Actually, my publisher wants promotional pricing. So the first week or so, it's going to be maybe 99 cents or so, and then it goes up to $14.95.
Okay. Would you like to leave your last word with anything you would like?
Mm-hmm. Are you familiar? There's the guy who founded the first real internet browser that was called Mosaic, and then changed name to Netscape. It's called Mark Andreasen.
Oh, sorry. What was the name first before Netscape?
Mosaic.
Mosaic. Yes, that sounds familiar. Like I think I remember that. Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So now, anyway, for the last many years, he's been a very, very successful and very famous venture capitalist up in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
And he was asked the same thing. He was asked, "What is the best advice you can give a startup?" And his answer was very simple: raise prices.
I love that.
And it's the same with me. I'm saying raise prices.
Yeah. So here's one question I always ask my guest. If for any reason you wake up next day, you have billions of dollars. You have Jeff Bezos money. I don't know. Probably you do now. I don't know. If you wake up next, would you stop what you're doing? Would you be like, hey, you know what? I'm not gonna do this price whisper anymore.
Nope. No, I will continue.
This is your passion. You love doing this.
Passion, yeah, absolutely. And helping companies and helping investors, and it's such a fascinating field, and
You
yeah,
enjoy.
it's specialized, but it's also something that I like to educate, and there's a lot um, a lot of people can learn
Yes.
about pricing,
Yes.
and so that's no, I'll do this. I'll continue to do the same thing.
All right. Thank you so much again, the Price Whisper. I really appreciate again, and thank you guys for listening. And we'll see you again for the next episode. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Edward.